Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Cheers to you. Hi everyone, and welcome back to WineBob. Thanks for joining us. Today we're going to be going over the tasting of the Marqués de Riscal Rioja Reserva. This is a special wine. I mean, let's be honest, to have a wine that has been aged 7 years at this point, this is a 2013, for under $20 is amazing. You're really not going to find that kind of value anywhere else in the world. Marqués de Riscal is kind of a fun wine because it's so iconic, to be completely honest. The bodega itself has been in the region since 1858 when it was founded, which actually makes it the oldest bodega in all of Rioja. Rioja itself is separated into three subzones. There's the Rioja Alta, the Rioja Baja, and then the Rioja Alavesa in the northwest corner. Now the Alavesa is the smallest subregion in Rioja, but that's where this one's from in El Ciego. The bodega itself, like I said, has been around for about 150 years at this point and has since had a complete makeover at the hands of Frank Gehry. And if you've ever been to Spain, you know that buildings are a work of art there. And the bodega at Marqués de Riscal is no exception. It's just such a stunning view to see. And it actually runs completely throughout the property. It has since been dubbed the City of Wine, and they call it a city because the property is gigantic. It houses the winery itself, an immense cellar, including something they call the cathedral. The cathedral is an extensive cellar that houses vintages all the way back to their first vintage, all the way up to present day. They have all of their fermenting facilities, all of their winemaking facilities there. They have a library, their hotel, a spa, a number of different restaurants. It's just such a vast network of different amenities that they offer there. Now, like I had mentioned in an earlier video, this one particular is Tempranillo and Graciano. And what those grapes do to the blend is Tempranillo tends to be a little bit more of a delicate varietal, and it kind of shows itself. If you get this from another area in Spain called Ribera del Duero, it tends to act with a certain degree of power and acidity and structure, and this in Rioja, in contrast, is a little bit different in that it shows a lot of elegance to it. And so they add Graciano because it gives it some extra structure and some extra meat, some extra muscle to kind of hold it up. Because like I said before, these wines typically age for long periods of time. Now, a lot of this aging is taking place in oak barrels. It can also be taking place in the bottle itself. And the oak of choice in that area is American oak. Now, historically, like I said, this is the oldest bodega, being founded in 1858 by Camilo Hurtado de Armezaga, and since has gone through 5 generations of family owning, and now resides with Jose Luis Muguero Jr. But in 1858, when this was founded, it was essentially as a byproduct of phylloxera taking over in France. And so what was happening is you had a lot of these Spanish winemakers who were learning what they could from the Bordelais winemakers of the time, and then coming back to Spain where the phylloxera outbreak hadn't hit yet, and they were taking what they had learned in France and they brought it back to Spain. And so having this oak aged wine style is very French in influence, and at the time, they didn't have a lot of trade that was easily going between France and Spain because there's that mountain range there that makes trade routes a little bit on the difficult side. But what Spain did have is they had a lot of transatlantic trade going on with America. And so instead of using French barrique like they use in Bordeaux and Burgundy and all the wine regions in France, they use American oak. And so the profile changes a little bit. How it changes is you end up with notes of dill and coconut, are very, very big signature profiles of Rioja. And because you've got this aged style, you're going to end up with a little bit more savory characteristics. You're still going to get a fair amount of fruit, especially in something that's not quite super old, like the 2013. But you're still going to end up with these savory characteristics. You're going to have that herbaceousness with the dill. But you may also be getting some leathery components. You could be getting some earthy stuff going on. And that's what I enjoy about aged wine, is that it tends to show a lot of these complexities that really just start to shine as things start to age. So I think this is an exemplary example at the price point, and I just cannot wait to share this with you because I think it's just such a special expression of this wine. Now, one other thing to note about this region before we jump into this wine is that it's dramatically hotter than a lot of these other old world regions. And what that does to the wine itself is that it tends to lend these really cooked fruit characteristics and this jamminess that you're not going to get anywhere else in the old world. You think about the growing regions in France, and they tend to present with a lot of these cooler climates. Even as you tend a little bit further south, you're still getting a lot of that Mediterranean influence to moderate some of the temperatures in that area. And when you look at where Rioja is situated just south of the Pyrenees Mountains, you're getting the rain shadow effect. And what rain shadow effect is it will have a wetter region on one side, and then on the other side you're going to have this much more arid climate, which is what Rioja benefits from. Now, you're getting a lot of limestone and clay, which aren't the most fertile soil types, and in having these really strenuous conditions for wine grapes to grow in, you're forcing them to acclimate, you're forcing them to fight for nutrients and water in the soils, and it ends up with a very concentrated fruit component in the final wines. And you're going to get that in a lot of these Rioja styles, is a lot of concentration of fruit, whether it presents itself in herbaceousness, whether it presents itself in the fruit itself, or the minerality. You're going to get a lot of concentration of those fruit components. And again, because it's of that warmer style, you're going to have a lot of ripeness, and alcohol tends to go up and acidity tends to drop a little bit. So with that higher alcohol, higher concentration, it's no surprise that when Spain was first putting itself on the map back in the 1400s, people were mainly using it as a blending grape in other regions. France was doing it, Italy was doing it. They were taking wines from Spain and using it to beef up the structures and beef up the bodies of their wines at home. You can't do that anymore because of the government regulations on these wines, but it just goes to show you that this is very much a signature of that style, to have this extra body, have this extra alcohol, because it's such a warmer region. It's really what they're known for. Now, having said all that, and I know I'm talking your ear off with a bunch of the mechanical side of it, but I just want to iterate these points because I think it really goes to show you how much contributes to the profile of a wine. It's not just grapes from anywhere being made by any dude in his garage. It's really a lot of components that are playing together to make a wine what it is. And in the old world, it shines more than anywhere else because they really focus on this terroir style. And that's what terroir is. It's all these contributing factors in how they play into the end result of the glass. So without talking your ear off any further, I'm going to go ahead and jump into the wine because I think that this is something that you're really going to enjoy checking out. Oh, right off the bat, you get that dill characteristic, that greenness to it that you're getting from the American oak. I get a little bit of this, I get the coconut. It really presents with a lot of oak up front, which I'm not terribly surprised by. A little balsamic characteristic, these concentrated dark cherries. This violet, these purple flowers, red flowers. Little caramel, little like dark chocolate powder, coffee. It's got a medicinal characteristic to it. A little of this wet foliage, slight like forest floor. A lot of these baked fruits. I get baked cherries, I get baked raspberries, like lighter, redder fruits, and even some slightly darker fruits, like boysenberries or even blackberries. But those blackberries and boysenberries aren't quite as cooked. They seem a little bit more on the fresher side. Oh, this like blueberry compote. Now what I'm doing when I'm swishing the glass is I'm aerating it. I'm helping it open up a little bit quicker. Now, if ever you find that you're becoming nose blind because you're smelling too much, you can always just smell your arm, and it helps reset your nose. Oh yeah, the balsamic's coming through real well. I'm not getting anything terribly new, so I'm going to go ahead and taste it. Nice leathery tannins, not too gritty, relatively soft. You're getting them a little bit more in the back of your palate, but it follows through nice into the mid palate, and I'm salivating a fair amount. So yeah, I mean, yes, it's not overly prevalent, but it is there to give it a nice little backbone to hold it up along with those tannins. The body on it is medium body. It's not too full bodied. I get a little bit of this greenness from the dill and the coconut that I think shows really well. The balsamic shines through really well. A little bit more of those tart fruit components, like a little bit of that black cherry, a little bit of that boysenberry I think is showing fairly well. This leatheriness, the cedary characteristic. Red apple skins, red apples. Between the fruit and some of that oak characteristic that you get, I mean, because I'm still getting some of that chocolate. I'm getting a lot of that oak influence on my palate. So between that fruit, the oak, and as far as earthiness is concerned, I'm still getting like this like muddy clay, which is kind of nice. But I think at the price point, this is a pretty killer Rioja. And I think if you've never had it before, you've never experienced Rioja before, and you're kind of curious what Tempranillo is going to be like, I think this is a pretty fair assessment of what you can experience across different bottles, and at least gives you the experience of having something with a little bit of extra age to it. I really do enjoy this wine, and if I'm trying to drink on a budget, or I'm, you know, maybe I've got somebody who doesn't know a ton about wine that I want to share something like this with, I think it's a wonderful wine, and I don't think anybody's going to turn their nose up at it. So, you know, please, if you haven't grabbed it already and you're not enjoying it with me right now, do yourself a favor and check it out, because I think it is a really unique experience in what you can experience in the region. Next week, we'll be going over some Malbec from Argentina. I had a request for it on Instagram. There's some really wonderful juice that's coming out of that region, so I really do look forward to sharing that with you. Now, speaking about sharing, I really do hope that you share these videos with your friends, and at the very least subscribe. I really do appreciate your support in that regard. And you know, most of all, I just hope that during these tough times, you and your families are doing really well, and you're staying safe and staying healthy. And you know, at the very least, hopefully we can continue to share wine together. Cheers.